others drew you near. It's a day when nothing turns out wrong and nothing turns out right. You realize there was another way out. It's a day when you are idle doing nothing, you find something great to do. What is this bright day? It's a day when you lay in bed sleepless, great sleep befalls you, and sweet dreams carry you away. It's a day when everybody seems moodless, you rise up and go out partying. It's a day when you feel like you don't belong, you feel like owning the arena. That's a bright day. And it is a day when books turn all boring, you get new, exciting ideas from them. It's a day when your head is all tired, it gets empty and ready for every good thing. It's a day when poor thoughts fill your mind, you embark on wealthy imaginations. It's a day when the weather is dark, cloudy, it gets sunny, and later it rains. How beautiful! It's a day when life seems worthless, it gets all meaning at once. It is a day when all goes unwell, all is well. It's a day when people dislike you, you feel sweet because love is all around you. It's a day when books are filled up, there's a page ready to be written. It's a day when there's nothing in your mind, there's something to say or write. Like this was just a day and a page existed. And this was just a day and a lounge existed. Thank you so much. I am the author of Beauty Under the Sky and Other Poems. It's a collection of good poetry. So feel free to talk to Anthony about it. Thank you so much. May God bless you, and God bless you for supporting Anthony and Zoeline. Thank you so much.
A wonderful round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Asante Sana. She has clearly redefined today, all right? She has said it's not sunny, as most of you might say. She has said it's neither calm, as you might think, but she has called it a great day, and a beautiful day for that matter. True? Right, so I'd like us to ask and brainstorm. You know, I like brainstorming, especially in the presence of one Antony, yeah? And you all who know Antony know that he has a perfect, or rather a good relationship, yeah? A good relationship with most of us, and he's a very, very good family man, correct? So I really wonder why exactly, in all his 3 books, he chose to write about entrepreneurship. There must be something interesting about that. He didn't write about love, despite the lovely relationship that he has with his wife, yeah? And neither did he talk about masculinity or parenting, despite the fact that he is such a good father. But he chose to talk about entrepreneurship and did the first book, the second book, and the third book. So we need to know and we need to embark on all this that he has for us. So without much ado, I'd like to invite one of our speakers today. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to put your hands together for one Mr. Hamred Chungani. Now, Mr. Hamred Chungani, sorry ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hamred Chungani is an author of The 5 Big Hows. The 5 Big Hows. So, he will tell us perhaps what is this he shares in common. So, over to you ladies and gentlemen, in a count of 3, 2, 1. Let's put our hands together for one Hamred Chungani.
Thank you so much, Mr. MC, for the wonderful wonderful welcome. I come from a place in a particular platform. It's called Toastmasters International. For most of us who have known about leadership and training, so we have been taught one thing about life. And it's called, anytime you meet a congregation of wonderful and resilient people like you never say good afternoon or good evening. You always say good morning. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So at any given moment, any day or any moment is a good morning. Reason why? Because good morning always defines us with good things. And it sets good things about your life. So before I start giving a very short understanding of entrepreneurship and one Antony Njagi, I want to come my family just to come and for them to come and say hi. Where I come from, you don't walk alone. If you walk alone, there is a problem. So please, that is Chunga. Say hi, please.
Good morning. Good morning once again. My name is Sophie, and I am so privileged and happy to be here with you today. And congratulations, Antony and Coach Olga. Thank you.
I better have if I may not introduce today or this particular time, I may have to go to the house and give it a better explanation. So you always have to be very safe. So Sophie Chungani, and then this is Hazel Noel Chungani. Second one, and our first born is Chungani. She could not make it because she's in school. I'm a man of one wife. Let me clarify. I'm a man of one wife and currently having 2 daughters. Asante. So, not taking much more of your time, I want to say Antony is definitely defined to me as a nugget of wisdom. When I met Antony in 2007, that is to be specific, 15 years ago, Antony was my first employer. So, how do I mean by this? We were new in campus, and of course, we were looking at techniques on how to survive. Being given maybe the infamous or the famous background, the humility where he came from. Antony, I remember him coming to where I was residing. We used to call it Kayole. And Kayole is one of the residents. It was defined as the lowly, for those who are from Kisii campus, because actually I'm an alumnus of Kisii campus. So Kayole was particular a group where not so good students in terms of financial could go and reside. So we were actually putting out there. And Antony and one Mr. Kimeme, I think he just stand up, I know you'll talk later on, just stand up and say, this Mr. Kimeme Ngugi, we happened to report on the same day, and we were actually housed at Kayole with all the privileges Kayole had. So after the second, I think it was when in second semester, Antony came to me and told me, you know what, Mr. Chungani, as sarcastic as he is, and his sarcasm is a way of telling you, can you come out of your comfort zone? So he told me, I have something special for you. I think you can do it. I told him, what do you mean? He told me, we have a few hours during the day when we are not doing lectures. So do you think you can make some useful, make it so important during that time? I told him, I jumped up. I told him, you are talking about money? He told me, yes. Can you go and do some insurance in that interview? At that moment, I knew now I am actually go from the frying pan into the fire. So he brought me to town and introduced me to Madison Insurance. He told me, when you are free, when you're not taking to your lectures, you can actually be doing sales of insurance. So that's the reason I'm saying, so my first 200 shillings in campus, that is in 2008, it was because of his commitment to employ me. From there on, the long story is that he's now grown up into a strong person of entrepreneurship. For me to give, because I've been privileged to talk about entrepreneurship, and he has written 2 books for those that found. It's called the Smart Street Entrepreneurs, and then we have the Thriving Entrepreneurs. So I've been given the privilege to have just a few things to talk about how to be a Smart Street Entrepreneurs. And before I do that, I wish Mr. Professor was here, Professor Kama was here, but I know he'll be coming on the way. For the distinguished guest, just to give another anecdote of the whole idea of entrepreneurship. In 2008, when I was in campus also, looking at ways to survive at Kisi campus, there is something that was introduced, and it was called work study. So work study was an area that so many people really didn't understand how it worked. But during work study is when actually I thrived in my area of entrepreneurship. But this time round was not under the leadership of Antony Njagi'S, but one Kenyan Buki. So the reason I'm actually bringing out these things before I share myself into the key things of how to become a street smart entrepreneur, I want, because I've seen most of the guys who are in this particular meeting are young people. And for you to make it, personally, at my level, I have been privileged to get some, let me say, good work, because yes, I'm employed by one of the good companies in this country, one of the good companies in this country. But over and above that, I'm an entrepreneur because I'm an author and also a business of knowledge management. I want you to go straight into the book of how to become a street smart. And these are the key issues. Antony Njagi'S has clearly defined 2 things that for you to become a smart street entrepreneur, you have to move away from the conventional way of thinking. Conventional way of thinking means, for us who have gone through the normal business school, we have understood this. There were all those factors of production. We have known of capital, for example, capital intensive. We have talked about how you are supposed to have human labor. We have talked about how you are supposed to have a premise. Those are factors of production. But in the way of Smart Street, Antony defines the whole entrepreneurship in a matter of one word. That you are supposed to move away and not look at those factors of production, but become a street smart. A street smart is that person who looks at way, how are you supposed to go at entrepreneurship and become the name on the club without having all those factors. For example, I want to go to the key things that he has talked in this book. When you look at his book, he has given 10 reasons or principles on how to become a street smart. First of all, you are supposed to advertise strategically. Number 2, you have to master the art of orientation. Number 3, know your own limits. I'm just giving you a brief, then I'll talk about 2 or 3. Number 5, he says you have to invest in new information. Number 6 says that make the expensive cheap. Look at the way he called his work. Number 7, he says that you install a surveillance system. Number 8, keep the main thing the main thing. Number 9, avoid public tenders like a plague. And number 10, know when to stop. Being a strong advocate of leadership and training, and being a strong person in terms of entrepreneurship under his leadership, I decided that I will talk on 3 things. Number 1, you have to advertise strategically. For all of us here who are maybe in the business of one day wanting to go into entrepreneurship, Antony, in his book, has given it in sometimes of comic. And I like Antony because most of the time, even when I'm in Nairobi, even in the house with my wife, anytime we're having a conversation, I will laugh from point 1 to 10. Because everything he says in comic and it's laughable. And this is not different from this book. He says, I love this one, I hate to quote it, he says that doing business without advertising is like a man who is winking to a girl in the dark. And he assumes that everyone else, that he assumes that they know what they are doing, but no one else does. Yeah, anajua anafanya nini. So that's about advertising. So, ladies and gentlemen, at any given moment when you are thrusting yourself into the world of entrepreneurship, I want you to remember this. If you don't advertise strategically, if you go to conventional ways of advertising, and remember, we are saying we are moving away from when you have to go to a branding company so that they can advertise your course. Of course, it's going to be expensive. The world has changed, and at the stroke of the keyboard, the world is able to see you. So Antony has clearly given you the strategies of how you can advertise your business so that you go out there and become a brand. And number 2, Antony has given us how to know that the customer is the king. In many times, when you are growing up, I remember like in many of the business courses, we were told that customer is always right. I want us to move from that particular facet. The customer is not always right, but the customer is the king. So in the book, Antony has been able to revolutionize. He has actually done what you call, he has taken us into the metamorphosis, whereby he gives another perception. And when you go to the book, he gives for an example, if you are doing some things in the shop, maybe you are a seller and you have a CCTV camera, a customer comes and steals, and the cameras there are showing that this customer has actually picked things from your shop. And the customer, when you even involve the police, the customer will actually say didn't steal, but the camera is showing. Are you going at the end of the day to say the customer is right? No. You say the customer is the king, but now you know how you're going to marinate the word right so that you don't lose away the customer. And he has given another perspective of how the customer is the king. I really want us to move away from this kind of talk, but I always want to talk about it because it makes me laugh all the way. If you got that book, from where I am, and from where I come from, the Wanga community, so I knew this from his book. The Wanga community, they had a king. And the king, that particular king, had, kings are perceived to be people who are supposed to be, how do you call it? They are supposed not to have enemies. They are speechless. That's what kings are. It's like a governor. For example, a governor of Kisii County. These are person who is supposed to be speechless. But in the Wanga community, because that time it will come, we call it pollution of the air. I know you know that you have gone through that story. So they chose one particular person and they gave that person a name. It's called Omunyandi. If you read the book, you'll understand. So Omunyandi is a person who will take responsibility of the king in case the king does what? Pollutes the air. That's what you understand by making the customer the king and not right. So anytime Omunyandi would say, I am the one who has done that, and will come up and take all the responsibility, but not the king. So the third thing, as I'm about to conclude, Antony has given me another perspective on, just before I do that, he has given us that there are two kinds of customers, and I want you to take this home. I know many of us, especially who are in business, like myself and Antony and any other person, you'll always, anytime you move out there, you'll come into connection with the two kinds of customers. You'll either have what you call good customers or potentially good customers. So there are no bad customers. In business, always remember this. There is no bad customer. Good customers are agents for information, and I agree with that. And Antony has given that perspective a wide thought. He has given it in all perception. For example, a good customer is one person you go and you go, actually buy your goods today. But tomorrow when you go, he will tell you, someone came around, I had to pick that. But potentially good customers, for the first day you go there, they will tell you, I don't think I need to buy or purchase a particular good. So they are a bit hard, but now when they become so good, they actually have a tendency to keep loyalty. So as an entrepreneur, you need to understand the kind of customers you have. Whether you're having good customers, if you're having good customers, you should be knowing that you are actually walking on the eggshells. At any given moment, you are going to lose those customers. But if you have potentially good customers, those are the customers that you are supposed to hold to. The other issue I want you to understand is the last one. The last one. Know your own limit. We live in an area, he has given us this perspective. We live in an area as entrepreneurs or even as individual people, you walk to a bank, and actually I've been a victim, I can't lie, I've been a victim. You go to a bank, you are going to apply for 500,000 or 1 million, and these guys who are always smartly dressed, they will ask you, or they will actually convince you and tell you, you can get more of your loan. If you are not a street smart entrepreneur, know that that is going to be your downfall. In this book, and the other day, just before I traveled from Nairobi, I had sometimes you lose insomnia, and that's the time your wife has to come in and make sure that you go back to sleep. So if you're not married, you need to marry. So when I was thinking on how to catch my sleep, I went through the book. And actually the story of John captured me. He has given the story of John who actually went to a bank, got 500, he wanted to get 500,000. He was given like 3 times, 2.8 million. And what happens when you get money not planned for? If you are not a street smart entrepreneur, it means you'll actually, what you call, redirect the funds you've gotten from the bank to other sources. For instance, if you are a student, I want to give an example because I've seen some of your students from university. I was there for about 15 years ago. If you get your help loan, we used to get our help loan at some moment. And the first, we used to call it, you need to bring that help loan to manageable levels. So you go to your bank, the first month, the first 2 weeks, you have around 40,000 in your bank or 30. So you need to manage it to the manageable levels. I think the VC is coming, maybe we should be able to bring in. So when you are not a street smart person, you will actually redirect your loan or your borrowing to some other things. So Antony Njagi'S has been able to expound in his book that before you start any kind of business, before you involve yourself in any kind of dealings, especially when it comes to borrowing, please go to the bank, or if not the bank, any financial institution, and be able to actually give yourself to them what you want. Do not define to them, let you know what you are supposed to get. Karibu sana Bwana VC. Honor to have you today. And the last thing, as I wrap up this, the whole issue of how to become a smart entrepreneur, these are my take homes. And today, I believe any other person, if you are going to have these 5 issues, then you are going to go places. Number 1, when Antony was starting his alto, because I have known Antony, I've said, for 15 years. Personally, I was a bit lost. I was not sure because he had just finished campus. We were out there in Nairobi struggling how to get employment, going to those companies, and we want to get those new jobs. But Antony was just last this, we call this particular place Bosongo. I don't know if Mr. Visi will be able to say that's the right one, but you call it Bosongo. So he was so settled in Bosongo, and we were wondering if he's going to make any sense out of it. But here, yeah, this is his third book. I was here when he was doing his first book, and at that particular time I was called distribution manager. Antony has used me in both good ways and bad ways. But God don't complain, because when I'm also doing, sometimes he goes does the legwork for me. So there's no problem about that. So I want you to take these 5 things as I conclude my principles of becoming a street smart enterprise. Number 1, and this one I'm putting it in a quote. Remember this, allow me to read. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Those are 3 principles I've learned from this book and from Antony. When he finished campus, as people were struggling, actually, if you go to him, he will tell you he started from nothing. And this is actually a quote from one of the biggest entrepreneurs in the world, is called Ash. And Ash says that just use what you actually start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Please, going forward, I want you to always believe in those 3 words. Number 2, follow your dreams. They already know their way. That's what you want to do. Anytime you wake up, for example, you may think you are not doing very well. Some of us, in the words of Chris Kirubi, the late, Chris Kirubi was a business mogul. He did a lot. Yes, of course, I don't want you to go into the things of how he was able to. Everybody has got a tail on his or her name. We don't want to go into that. I always don't want to judge people from where I sit from, I don't want to judge people. People will say, that guy was doing this, but truth be told, he was a business mogul. So Chris Kirubi, when I used to listen to him a lot on YouTube, because I want at some who would not want to have a hotel in CBD, Intercontinental Hotel, so that when you are tired, you go and have swim on the rooftop. Who would not want to have that? Those are the things he wanted. So in the words of Chris Kirubi, he said this: some of us have been modeled to become CEOs of companies, and some of us have been modeled to become business owners. If you have been modeled to become a business owner, believe me, you start being a CEO somewhere, you will fail. And you've been modeled to become a CEO, and you go into business ownership, you will fail. So actually know your catch. That's what Antony has been able to give in this book. That know your dreams, and your dreams will follow you. If you are, for example, if you have a vast business, what you can do is actually go get a very good CEO. The CEO will run your business, and you will not have problems at all. But if you don't have any kind of business tenacity on how to run the business, you will fail. The third thing, which is the second last one, never underestimate the power of the weak people. And this one is brought in the book of Antony Njagi'S, where he's giving how Equity Bank has been able to grow up from nothing. James Mwangi, and we call them the big boys of wealth, the big boys of Mranga. Those people actually knew the people of the weak people. If you underestimate at any given moment the people of the weak people, fall. And lastly, he says this in 4 words: keys. Keep it simple. Some maybe stupid. Yeah, like I put there, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. This means, for example, I was in a particular, I ran some programs on training and sectorial management. So sometimes we go on various trainings, and we actually gave a simple task. We actually asked a simple task that if you are given an elephant and you are given a fridge, and they ask you, please, can you put this elephant to the fridge? The answers we got got me thinking that we actually overthink at any given moment. Someone actually, wengine walikuwa nasema, you go get kisu, katakata hiyo elephant, weka kwa fridge. Mwingine alikuwa nasema, maybe chukua hiyo elephant alafu pelekee simba atamuuma akufe. They are very funny answers. So what you mean by keys, that keeping it simple, you just literally open the door, the fridge, and the elephant gets in and he closes the door. What do I
invite you, sir. Just before I invite you, sir. Now, this next speaker, she has been termed, rather Antony told me as a matter of fact, that she is a gender expert. And she's also a founder member of Roundtable Wellness Foundation. And amongst other things, please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for one Magdalene Desai. Thank you, sir.
Don't mind me, then you something. very much, our chief guest, my co-speakers, Antony, and your family, and everybody else. Good afternoon. It's an honor that I have today to be addressing such a gathering. I'm actually really honored. I have known Antony since 2014, I think. I was a student at Kisi University at that time. I still am. And I had just begun my PhD. And I would pass by his shop one while to buy an item or something like that. And he became an acquaintance, somebody that I want to see grow. So it's quite an honor. Now, I had the opportunity to review Antony's book, The Street Smart Entrepreneur, Street Smart. And I was reading it, and I had such a short time to look at it. Most of the things in that book, I resonated with them. I looked at myself, looked at my experience. Have I tried business before? Yes, I have. Have I succeeded? Sometimes, sometimes not. Why have I not succeeded? I could see all that in the text. But now here's the thing. I have two friends of mine who, the last business I was setting up about 2 years ago, one of them told me this, and the other one agreed, that you should never ignore an extra shilling in business, no matter how small, because it is money you didn't have. You know, I've ever been invited to engage in business, and you wonder, now this one, what's the profit? What's in it for me? 5 shillings? Have you ever looked at people who sell airtime? You ask yourself now, she's selling this credit and probably going to make 2 shillings. And you think it's small. But when you check your pockets, do you have those 2 shillings? No. But if she does that business, she has 2 extra shillings. So that's business. I found that so street smart when I looked at it. Something else that Antony mentions that I resonated with, something about taking loans. I'm a TSC employee, so they always dangle loans in front of us. You can take until you earn 0. But now here's the thing that I've learned over the years. What is the purpose of taking that loan? Are you going to invest in it, or are you going to put it in something that does not bring back any interest? The minute it's going and not bringing interest, it becomes a threat to your financial stability. I remember when I was young, my parents had a pharmacy. My dad was a pharmacist. So there was a pharmacy. Business that time was very simple. The pharmaceutical bodies would bring him all the goods he needed. And then they would go. They would invoice him after 60 days. And then they would not take their money. And then they would come back after a few more months. Now he would have stock in the business, and then there was a lot of money in their hands. But you know, when you have money, such items, and you're not paying that loan, by the time they come for the money, if you did not plan what is likely to happen to you as a businessman, you'll be struggling to pay a loan, and you will not have the money in hand, probably because you spent it on something else. So the first suffering that I ever saw my family encounter was auctioneers coming to our home, and they had to take items. Those days, somehow that business that my family ran, it was tied from family to home. So when they could not get everything they needed in their pharmacy, they came home for it. Imagine, from high school, you come home, then you find the seats, the sofa sets, the AC that your parents had struggled to buy, a TV, you know, the luxury that anybody would afford back then. By the way, that was in the, I think, early 90s. So the seats were gone, we sat on the floor for some time before they could recover. And the stress with auctioneers, the more you chase your items, the more you will never get them. You spend more money chasing them, and you never get. They learned the hard way. Now, another thing that I learned in this book is how sometimes ladies, we love shopping, isn't it? Yeah. We go online, you see a beautiful dress on a beautiful model. And then you're like, now I want that dress on me. And then there is always this common phrase on social media that says, what I asked for versus online shopping. So in this book, Street Smart Entrepreneur, Antony mentioned something about some of that. Have you taken the time? Have you ever seen something online and you ordered, and when it got home, you feel so bad because your money was wasted? Now, one thing I also picked from the book, that street entrepreneurs are always curious, they are practical, and they are what? Pragmatic. They want to know. Most of the time, they want to know. And then they look around them to see what can work. And then they see if it is suitable within their environment. And I picked this statement there, that what works for American market doesn't necessarily work for the African market. True, of course.